What's up, family? Welcome back to the Stop Sinking Show, where we go from struggle to flow. Let's talk about the difference between responsibility and accountability. It might seem subtle, but it is not. To distinguish it simply, responsibility is the job itself. It's the assignment of a task or a part to play in the larger picture. Accountability is the ownership of that job and all the jobs of all the other people who hold responsibilities alongside you. When working towards a common goal, many people can have distributed responsibilities. Only one is held accountable for it all. Many times, the accountable party also has many responsibilities of his own, but managing all the other ones he's delegated, all the other responsibilities, is the biggest responsibility he has, to make sure everything is done up to a certain standard. Why is this important to know? Because if you are the responsible party, you first have to know the part that you play and have understanding of your contribution that adds to the bigger picture. But if you are the accountable party, it is important for it to be clear that the buck stops with you, that no credit or blame goes past you, that you don't have the same luxury of looking to your left and the right when something or someone goes wrong in their responsibilities. Being accountable is saying, no matter what, anything that happens on my watch, whether it's by my own actions or those that I have delegated actions to, all of that falls on me to account for and then action. I'll give a silly little example in my own life that illustrates this point. I hate going through the mail. Half of it is usually junk, and the other half is just reference to file and keep somewhere. And then it's the mail that has built-in actions into it, like a bill that has to be paid or a decision that needs to be made, having to make a call or write an email. Could be anything. So usually going through the mail is not my favorite activity, and it causes the mail to pile up. Sometimes it piles up so long that other people will go through it. Like my girl will go through it, or right now my father will go through it. They take on the responsibility to see if there's anything in there that's timely or something that they've been waiting for. But you know what? The pile never gets smaller. Even if they go through it, the mail, the papers, they just sit there piling up. Because at the end of the day, unless I check it and either do all the action steps and the action items that are in there, or decide if the mail is junk or something to keep, unless I physically take on the ultimate accountability, which is mine to take, of the final decision on what to do with these papers, they will just sit there unless I do that. Sometimes in my past, my girl has stood far at the end of the room and stood by the mail and asked me out loud, like, do you need this, or should I throw this one out? And I'll just say yes and no. Because others may have done their part and played their responsibility to make sure nothing is blowing up in the mail. No fire drills. But the person who is accountable has to at least comb through the data to make sure that they are not abdicating or abandoning the responsibilities altogether, which would mean the possible matters that need to be handled don't get handled. And I'm also going to be the one who's upset if some paper goes missing, so that's that. Accountability is about ownership. It's about who it affects at the end of the day, who's really going to be the one that goes out there and solves the problem, who it all falls on, whose head is on the line. That doesn't mean a person who takes on a responsibility shouldn't have ownership over their responsibility. Ultimately, they are accountable to their responsibility. But if you zoom out, there are only a few layers of consolidated people who are ultimately accountable. Whether you see that through a work lens and say departments, or you see that through a personal lens and say categories of competencies, or whatever somebody's good at is what they take on and are held accountable for. In your life, though, for yourself, you are both responsible and held accountable. You must be the technician and the manager and the boss. You must be all the layers, carrying out your responsibilities and then identifying and prioritizing responsibilities to be carried out, and ultimately create opportunities for responsibilities to be required in the first place. At any given time in our life, if we are stuck, it's usually because we are failing in one or all of three of these areas, these three roles. Either you are not being a good worker, a good technician, and are not carrying out or not executing on your responsibilities at the best possible level that you can, or a layer up, you are distracted, mismanaging your time and energy, not identifying and clarifying your goals for responsibilities and then the work that needs to be anchored to something like your responsibilities, or the furthest layer up, which is you lack the vision, which leads to the manager and the worker being out of a job completely. Nothing to prioritize, nothing to work on. Everything halts because imagination must precede progress. If you don't have the likeness, the pencil outline, even the haziest of ideas of what is worth creating, then nothing gets created. Your hands cannot carry out what your heart doesn't know to want. And you are held accountable for what you create or fail to create. That's what you can't delegate. Something you cannot outsource. Trying to outsource your creation would be like trying to outsource your sex life. Only you can play that part. So we might be stuck in any one of these three roles, but without a vision, the rest of the roles lose trust with you. They don't have a leader to be following. A life of meaning is full of responsibilities. But the person who feels accountable, feels it, who takes responsibility for all the responsibilities because he feels the accountability. He who says, no matter what happens, I will solve, resolve, repair, and reconstruct. If a life of meaning is full of responsibilities, imagine the durability of meaning in a life of who is accountable. I love you, family. Stay true always. I'll see you on the next show.